Well, hello, folks. It's Radio FM88. We're broadcasting from the studios in Brisbane. And Thursday nights, which is Thursday mornings in the UK, for our co-host, Andrena, who you can see there in the lovely pink. And our guest, of course, is in the middle, who also comes from the UK. So without further ado, if you wish to participate, continue on with YouTube channel Radio FM88 Australia or Facebook Radio FM88 Australia. After the show, you can jump onto Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon, Google, and Apple, and you can take down the show as well. So there you go, radiofm88.com.au, and I'm passing it over to Andrena with our guest.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Good morning, everybody, and happy equinox if you're over in the UK and surrounding, and solstice in Australia and places. Right, 21st of the 3rd, 2024. So today it's my great pleasure to have Michael Tyack on the show on Dreaming the New Dream. So welcome, Michael. Lovely to see you again.
Thank you very much for having me.
No, our pleasure. So I met up with you yesterday for a cuppa and we were having a chin wag. And I was privileged to come to your home. It must have been well over a year, 2 years ago now, I'm not sure. And you were doing a talk on numbers with Jamie Arthur Pickup. And I was just amazed with the amount of numbers and all the information it was coming through. It was like flip. It was just mind blowing. So on that note, you're a very gifted musician and I have seen you playing. So let's start at the very beginning because you're really into numbers and I love numbers. So how did all of this, your early life, lead you to where you are now, to what you're doing in a nutshell?
Let me see. I don't know. My early life, some kind of shy person. I didn't really get it together until I was about 40, really. When I kind of made some albums and life started kind of going in more of the direction that I'd hoped it would go in. And I could give up my day job and do music and have a nice time. And so I've continued to have a nice time, for the past, 18 years. I'll give away my age. I'm 58. So life kind of gets better and better. And I think it was kind of through maybe discovering dowsing that kind of opened up the kind of magic for me in my life. Because I've always been a big fan of, the mysterious. And I spent my youth like reading Colin Wilson and T.C. Lethbridge and all these, the kind of old school John Michel. But then it wasn't really until someone gave me a pendulum that I suddenly realized, oh my God, you can actually, it works. And so with a pendulum, I had a great adventure. But I think I kind of burnt out with the pendulum a bit. I kind of used it too much, which you people can do. And so I had a letter chart, which was, a bit like a Ouija board maybe, but I had a letter chart. So I had direct contact with other dimensions. And I could talk to people in other dimensions, and they would talk to me through the letters. It's quite a painstaking process, because you have to really concentrate, and then you have to trust that you're not influencing what letter the pendulum is going to. But it was giving me words that I had no idea of the meaning of these words in this kind of archaic language. And it's only when you kind of go and look up the words later that they're absolutely diamond, absolute precision words that I could never think of myself. And so, that was pretty good. And so I got quite a lot of channelings about how you create your own reality, which I think everybody listening to this show will probably know, that you create reality with your thoughts because it's all an illusion. And so that was pretty exciting. And then I did a course on dowsing with not Hamish Miller, but Hamish Miller had just passed, but with his wife, Bar Miller. So Hamish Miller was like the kind of main guru of dowsing in Britain, because he wrote the book The Sun and the Serpent with Paul Broadhurst. So dowsing and use of a pendulum and a letter chart gave me kind of like quite a good tool for investigating other dimensions. And so, I've had great fun with that. And all this kind of mathematics that I talk about now came, as far as I'm aware, as a result of those investigations, poking my nose into other dimensions. And it's quite, it's very high dimensional mathematics, which is what I've kind of got. So this is what I mean by taking Lego to another dimension, because this is the cube seal, and it's a high dimensional mathematical wonder, and I made it out of Lego with the help of a friend, and you can open it up and see the numbers inside, and it's very beautiful, and hopefully it gives us a bit more understanding of where we are in terms of, we're in this kind of like numerical construction. Everything is imbued with number. My hat is imbued with number. It has a circumference, and it has a temperature, and it has a weight, and it has a color, which is also a number, a vibration, frequency. So you can quite clearly see that even though you can't really touch numbers, they're in everything. Everything is filled with numbers, and so it makes numbers particularly interesting, for kind of getting a grip on reality, and possibly how, my greatest kind of thing, always my favorite TV program was Doctor Who. and so, I've always wanted to do the old TARDIS thing. And so hopefully, this can be achieved. Dream the dream. And if you don't dream the dream, then you might as well,
that's right.
Pay your Netflix account.
You just need Tom Baker's scarf, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, as a result of this, having this tool of the dowsing rods and the pendulum letter chart, I could get quite accurate information on where to look and what to look for. And so about 10 years ago, I was living just outside of Glastonbury on this beautiful old medieval farm, and there was a very ancient pond there that had dried up, and I knew that there was something in that pond that I had to go and retrieve. And so I had permission from the owner of the medieval manor who owned the pond, and she said, of course you can, if you want to dig a hole and look for something in that pond, you can do. I was thinking it would be gold. And so I got my little letter chart out, and I dangled my little dangly pendulum, and it went to a G. And I thought, oh, this is a good start. And then it's like, give me an O, but it didn't. It went to E, and I'm like, oh, what's this? A G. And then it spelt out gemstone, and I thought, oh right, okay, at least it's made sense. So I knew that I was looking for a gemstone, and then with the dowsing rods, you can find out where to dig, and you can find out how deep you've got to dig. And so I knew that I had to dig down 5 feet. And I started digging, and it was beautiful, just pure black peat, like not even a twig, nothing. Everything had composted to this glorious, ancient, rich, earthy, beautiful stuff. And so there was about 2 feet of that. And then it got a bit more sticky and a bit more clay-like, but there was still not even the sign of a twig or a leaf or anything. Everything was just pure earth, or then pure clay. Then I got down to about 5 feet, and my spade went clang, and it hit something. And so I started taking the earth away from round what my spade had clanged upon, and it was hexagonal. It had been carved. And so I thought, what on earth is this? And I kind of pulled it out, and it was this. It was this. Hello. This is the. Well, I won't give away where it is, because I'll keep it secret where it is for now. But I do tell people. People do know, but I won't. I'll keep the mystery a bit mysterious. So this is the stone that I dug up, and I was like, "What on earth is this?" And I showed it to the lady of the manor, and she said, "Well, it's nothing. It's just an old rock." But I knew that it was a kind of quite important kind of ceremonial artifact because it has these kind of dimples on the front of it, where people have been burning something. So it'd been lying in this megalithic pond. These ponds, incidentally, these old gnarly Somerset ponds, they're geomantic devices. They were built, I think, for gazing at the heavens, because when I dug down a little further to see what what was below and what have you, I came across the lining of the pond, which was all built with stone. So it was all a stone built pond, and these were built probably the same time as the kind of megalithic structures, maybe early Bronze Age or what have you, or earlier, who knows. So I believe that stone had probably been there for about 2,000 years. I might be wrong, but I guess from around the time of Christ, because underneath the stone there was a wand, a wooden wand about 2 feet long, that looked like the end of it had been carved yesterday. It was a fresh cut at the end. It had been preserved in the clay. So there's me, wannabe Doctor Who, and I dug up this thing, and then I didn't know what on earth it was. So I mean, I have the wand. But I thought, well, maybe I need to. Eventually, I thought, well, I can't do anything with this stone. It's way too powerful. You can't have it on your mantelpiece. It's not. It's something that is too kind of powerful, really, to have around you. And so I kept it. I kept it where it was, and it's actually returned to the earth now. But the intent there, I do have an intention to retrieve it, and I built a museum in order to display it, so that people could come and experience what this stone does to them. Because what it did to me, it gave me all this higher dimensional mathematics. So I thought, well, if it can do that to me, it's probably got other information stored in it that other people might resonate with and receive downloads from this stone. But even just by looking at the stone, you can receive the information. You don't actually have to be in its presence. So anyone looking at this stone now is probably receiving some quite powerful information that was put into this stone back in the age of high technology, where technology was more on the lines of consciousness. So conscious thoughts could be stored in this crystalline structure and then released. So it's probably releasing all this beautiful ancient druidic or pre-druidic, who knows, kind of wisdom to you all now. So congratulations, everyone.
Fantastic, especially on this equinox, eh?
Yeah. So that is the stone, and doing its work there on all of you. So hopefully you'll now all have these revelations as to the structure of reality and love, or what have you. Oh, hello. There. There's the TARDIS, time and relative dimension in space. So yeah, time and relative dimension in space, it's all got to be governed by number. So if you can crack the numbers, then you've cracked time and relative dimension in space. TARDIS. Yeah.
Interesting. We've lost Jeffrey.
I know.
Oh no, we lost. Have you done that on purpose or what?
I don't know what happened there.
I think the stone has blanked you out.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting, because I realised I plugged in my computer, but I hadn't switched the plug on. God.
Wow.
So I've quickly done that, so that's fine. So anyway, carrying on. So have you kept the wand, or did you bury that? Did you leave it there?
No, I still have the wand.
Right.
Yeah.
Have you got it for us to have a look at?
Well, I haven't actually got it prepared, but I could.
Right. Not to worry.
Yeah. Maybe people will have to come to the museum to actually hold it, I think. Yeah.
And if you've never been to Michael's place, my God, you're in for a treat. It's amazing, absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Thank you. So I really like sharing this information about numbers, and I do tour guiding, and it's incredible that it's a lot of Americans come here, and they're all seeing the same thing. They're all seeing triple numbers. I would say like 90% of the people I meet are all seeing triple numbers, and they want to know why. Or they're all seeing 1111. Now, this wouldn't have occurred maybe 10 years ago. So this is definitely a shift in consciousness. Why are numbers suddenly talking to people? I think it's because we're going through this kind of threshold into a new state of consciousness with this, whatever you call it, the age of Aquarius. Or so I've made two mathematical discoveries, I think. The main one is this Lego cube seal, so on a Wednesday evening, I have people come round and I talk about it, and we just look at we just look at the wonders of numbers. The wonders of numbers. That's a good one.
Yeah.
And we look at the work of Robert E. Grant and just anyone that's put together some good number stuff. I mean, Jamie Arthur Pickup, he's completely on another level. But this is the beginning. This is something I call the Tower of Time, and this kind of explains why we're going through this kind of threshold. So nice. So there we are. This is. I'll talk you through this Tower of Time. I can probably spin this out to about 15 minutes or something. So, and it's something that everybody needs to kind of be aware of, because it's quite comforting that at least something in these topsy-turvy times is making sense. So this is a 9 by 9 by 9 cube, and the dimension of time, we're in the fourth dimension here, I would say, because we have, up, down, sideways, 3 dimensions. And then the fourth dimension is time. And everything we're experiencing in our lives is kind of created from cubes. And that's why they worship the big black cube in Mecca. Why do they all gather around this big black cube? It's probably because cubes are what kind of create this dimension. So anyway, this is the 9 by 9 by 9 cube, and it's the same as the cube seal. This is also the 9 by 9 by 9 cube, but we're using this cube in a different way right now. Let me see back here. So yeah, and this is inside it, and it's a nest of 9 cubes. So we've got the numbers 1 to 9 forming cubes, and they're all nested inside of each other. So yeah, if we go back to the there we are. So that's moving on, but we won't start stacking them yet. But this is what we're going to do. We're going to stack them. So this is right. Okay, we're kind of in the year 2024 at the moment, or we might not be, but we're kind of, I think we can kind of agree. Some people might be obstinate and argue that we're not in the year 2024, but that's all right. They can get stuffed. We're in the year 2024. Oh, the Mayan calendar and the Hebrew calendar. It's 2024. So we started measuring time. For some reason, someone had the bright idea to start measuring years at 0 AD. I don't know who thought of that. I mean, I don't know who decided that today is Thursday, but someone decided it, and we all agree that it's Thursday. But anyway, so we started measuring time at 0 AD, and that wasn't even the birth of Christ. It's like, oh, okay, Christ was born in 0 AD. No, he wasn't. He was born 4 years before. But anyway, it's all a crazy story. So we started measuring kind of time from 0 AD. So this is just a theory, but it kind of works as a theory. So here you go, people. The 9 by 9 cube can be expressed as containing, it contains 729 units or cells, because 9 times 9 times 9 is 729. So we're going to look at each unit as a year. So this is 729 years. And this was a cycle of time. It's a distinct cycle of time. And actually, if you're looking at that cube right now, you can see a hexagon. It's got 6 sides to it viewed from this angle. And the stone that I dug out the ground also has 6 sides. So the stone is in a sense a 2-dimensional representation of a cube. Aha. So this distinct cycle of time moved very, very slowly. This was the slowest cycle that we experienced. So we kind of, incarnated in this realm, many times, perhaps 20 or more lives, however many lives it takes to get through 729 years. But technology moved very, very slowly. You kind of lived the same life as your mother and father, as they probably lived a very similar life to their mother and father, and so on. Unlike now, the life I've lived compared to my mother is completely different, and compared to my grandmother, there's no comparison to. So back in the 9 cycle of time moved very, very slowly. It didn't rush by like a carpet being swept under your feet like it is at the moment, with days and weeks and months just flying by as they do. I believe time felt very slow then, and there was no need to kind of rush around. So I kind of call this like the age of leisure. Looking at Britain, the first part of that cube, first half of it was maybe the Roman occupation. Then we're told that the Romans left, and then we're told for some reason there was no pottery in England for about 200 years, and we're told by the archaeologists that people forgot how to make pots. None of it makes much sense to me. I don't know how you can forget to make a pot. I mean,
sounds a bit potty to me.
Yeah, what did people eat out of this? So there's all this like weird history that we're told that makes no sense. So the Romans left Britain, and there's no sign of any pottery being made in Britain for 200 years. I mean, but anyway, that's all by and by. We got to the year 729. So we had, an early Christianity kind of established itself, but we were still, worshipping in kind of wooden structures mainly. So 720, the 9-ness gave us kind of like expansive leisure. And then the next number to present us with another slab of time was the number 8. So we placed the 8 cube on top of the 9 cube. So 8 times 8 times 8 is 512. So we're stacking another 512 years onto those 729 years. And this takes us to the year 1241. So 1241 is when all these abbeys and cathedrals were being knocked up all around Europe. I mean, again, how do they do it? How do they get the workforce to build? I don't know how many abbeys and cathedrals there are. There must be 100 in Europe, of a scale of a monstrous, gigantic, beautiful scale. There must be at least 100 were built in this 100-year period. I can understand if you had a team of masons going around building these abbeys. They couldn't do it all. I don't know how they did it. I don't know how people were so brilliant back then. But anyway, by 1241, Chartres, Notre Dame, Glastonbury Abbey, York Minster, Salisbury Cathedral. You had the Wells Cathedral. Endless all across Europe. You had all these wonderful temples, which were all kind of sacred, geometric. I don't know. Consciousness had really lifted. Humanity had certainly got their act together. So the number 8 allowed consciousness to construct architecture. So I say for this distinct cycle of time, we'll call this architecture. So we've got leisure, and now we've got architecture. If we stack the next cube on, which was the distinct cycle of time brought to us by the fabulous interdimensional number 7, 7 cubed. I love number 7. That's why I live at 777. So 777 is 343, 343 years. And this takes us in our calendar now to the year 1584. which was a wonderful time. It was a flowering of the mind and a flowering of the spirit in what was known as Renaissance Europe. Even though the Renaissance kind of began in Italy and maybe 100 years earlier, it had really flowered by 1584, to the point where we were about to have this Shakespeare consortium, and we had Marlowe, and we were presented with many, many more words in the English language with which to express ourselves. And it was the age of magic. It was the age of John Dee. 1584 was when Dr. Dee was over in Prague communicating with Enochian angels and all this stuff. And he was the advisor to Elizabeth I. He was Queen's astrologer. And he signed his letters to her 007. He was who Ian Fleming based James Bond upon, Dr. Dee. But as well as this, you had the British Navy was the most powerful fleet in the world, and we could sail anywhere, and Britain rule the waves and all that. Anyway, so for the cycle of time which brought us the number 7, I call this kind of the age of maritime, or the age of ships. So we had plenty of leisure, we had architecture, and now we're going anywhere we want to on ships. It was when the British Navy formed in the 1580s. There's so much, it's such a magical kind of time, the 1580s. But we'll move on. We'll move on to the number 6. So 6 times 6 times 6 is 216. So these cycles of time are shortening. So we're getting less years to achieve what we need to do in that cycle of time, for consciousness to develop and express itself in this realm. So 1800 was another kind of landmark period, really. It was a lot of things happened in 1800. Like in America, you had the opening of the Capitol building in Washington. And over in England, well, it was actually in the first minute of 1801, we had the UK formed, the United Kingdom of England, Scotland, and Ireland, where the whole of the British Isles were united before we started arguing and broke up again. But so you had this unification in 1800, but really it was the industrial age. It was bang in the middle of the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution is kind of 1760 to 1840. So 1800 is bang in the middle of the Industrial Revolution. And this was, of course, powered by steam. In the early days of steam, it was the low pressure cylinders, these big, honky, great, massive steam engines, which would pump out the mines in Cornwall. But it was actually an ancestor of mine, Richard Trevithick, who developed the high pressure steam cylinder. And so this Richard Trevithick, who's a kind of great uncle, he made the first steam train down in Camborne in Cornwall, which is where my family is from. And I'm quite proud to be Cornish, or half Cornish anyway. And actually, the plinth that that this tower is sitting on is a sundial from 1850, belonging to my great grandfather. But that's another story. And he was a bit of a magician as well. So 1800, it was the age of steam, and it was the beginning of the age of trains. 1804 was when my great uncle set up, built this first steam train. And then it was of course Stephenson's rocket got all the glory, and Richard Trevithick died a pauper, but who cares, So 1800, we could go anywhere on trains. And over in Italy, you had Alejandro Volt invented the battery in 1800. And Napoleon was running amok. It was, there was a lot going on in 1800. But it's not over yet, because there's another cube to put on top of that, and that is the 5 by 5 by 5 cube. Thank you, Jeffrey. Brilliant. And that this is 125 years. So, time is speeding up now. These distinct cycles of time are shortening. So in this 125 years, from 1800 to 1925, we had, the Chrysler Car Company opened in 1925. This was when mass production cars went into mass production in 1925. And the first commercial airline, 1925. You also had, kind of the financial crash in America was about to happen a few years later. It was the Roaring 20s. It was when life got really exciting. Suddenly people learned how to dance, I think, and you had radio. Kind of, we didn't quite have television yet then, I don't think, but we had we had cinema. So it was another whole flowering of consciousness brought by the number 5 and the 5 by 5 by 5 cube. So next came the 4 by 4 by 4 cube, which is 64 years. Now this is just really just one lifetime. Thank you. There we are. And 64 years on top of the 1925 takes us to 1989. And this is another very important year, 1989. Forget about 1988, nothing much happened. Forget about 1990, nothing much happened. 1989, it all happened. It all happened. We had the first episode of The Simpsons. And this was when we really start getting messed with time and time travel and events being depicted in The Simpsons that hadn't happened yet. And wait a minute, what's going on? We're going into a weird world now. So The Simpsons, and we also had the first cell phones in America were being brought out in about 89, according to the American visitors that I meet. They seemed, I think in 1989. I think it was the year that officially the World Wide Web was established in 1989 over at CERN. Wait a minute, we'll have a look at CERN another time. Talk about blimmin' TARDIS and time manipulation. Yeah. So 1989 was also, the fall of the Berlin Wall. That was quite a big event. And it was the Tiananmen Square riots, the kind of, all that mayhem over in China. It was the San Francisco earthquake, which kind of I was in, and I thought I was going to die, actually. So it was the year I thought I was going to die the most. It's the closest I've ever been to thinking this is the end. You're facing your creator now, Michael. Time to say goodbye. But luckily, I survived it. And then I soon fled America for good. I just got my timing wrong. So 1989, we'll look at this as hello, computer. So just going through it again, we've got leisure, we've got architecture, we've got ships, we've got steam, we've got trains, we've got aeroplanes, cars, mass media. And now with this end of this 4 cube, we've got our friend, the internet. So the next comes the number 3 cube, 3 by 3 by 3. You see how these cycles of time are compressing and time is speeding up. So the 3 cube, there he is. That's 27 years. And that took us to 2016. Oh, look at that. You've written it all out. Beautiful. Yeah. So anyone. Oh, it's actually the year 1241. 729 plus 512 is 1241, not 1247. But anyway. So in these 27 years, a lot changed. Our friend, the internet, turned into a bit of a bully, in my opinion. And it suddenly got smart, and anyone that wasn't smart was stupid and all that. But what a horrible word smart is. They should just swap that with the word evil, I think, or surveillance. So this is when the internet kind of bites back. 2016, another. Not a lot happened, say, in 2015 or 2017, but 2016 was when the world was delighted to have an American president with such a great hairstyle and such a great track record with the ladies. But anyway, so America had old Donald, and over in England, everyone was throwing their toys out the pram because we'd done a Brexit. Anyway, so we had Brexit in the year 2016. But it was really when we kind of clocked that our computers, it was all getting a little bit Orwellian. It was like, oh my goodness, George Orwell was right. Our television sets are watching us. And but now so this is that was the number 3 cube. So now we've just been through. We're kind of at the closing stages of the 2 cube. 2 by 2 by 2 is 8. So these 8 years have taken us to where we are today in 2024. And so if we go by what happens at the end of each of these cycles of time, we're introduced to a new technology which we could not have foreseen. So at the end of this year, or by the end of this year, will we have a new technology available to us or thrust upon us, which we had not quite foreseen? And this is quite possible, with the AI stuff. Now, back and then in the middle of this 2 cube in 2020 vision, well, for instance, the new £20 note was introduced in England on the 20th of February, the 2nd, 2020. And it has, if you get a £20 note out and you try and count how many times the number 20 is written on it or the word 20 is written on it, you can't count. It's written on that pound note infinite times. So 20, they were thrusting the 20s at us, the 2s at us on the 20th of the 2nd, 2020. And this was also when the world was, thrown into, lockdown and all that kind of stuff. Not many people bought it in Glastonbury because we knew it was coming. But I'm not blaming anyone for not seeing it coming. I mean, most people in Glastonbury saw it coming and knew that it was whatever it was. But anyway, so everyone happily received these inoculations. This could all be part of the new technology that we're going to see at the end of this cube. I don't know. I mean, I just really hope that everyone's okay, and that it wasn't, there was nothing nefarious or nothing bad was intended with that, with that rollout of vaccinations and all that horrible stuff. But anyway, it's what it is, and everybody's happy, and we're all going to be happy, and everything's perfect. But anyway, so we're going to have this other level of technology perhaps come at the end of this year. Now, this could be anything. It could be kind of holographic. It could be walking holograms. But we know how fast technology is moving, and we know that every word I'm saying is being recorded by my phone and stored in the cloud somewhere. Probably every thought I think is actually being stored somewhere. This could be the level of technology that we're not quite aware of. So we're in for a ride. But then, of course, there's still the pokey little number 1, which is 1 cubed. There it is. And this takes us to 2025. So the numbers 1 to 9, it's not only in this dimension of cubes. If you look at the numbers 1 to 9, if you add up the even numbers, 2, 4, 6, 8, they come to 20. And the odd numbers, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, comes to 25. So you see 2025 again. The numbers 1 to 9 add up to 45. If you multiply 45 by 45, what do you think you get? 2025. So this kind of numerical world that we're living in, where everything is holding numbers in its dimensions, in its temperature, in its color, in its vibration, we're coming to a kind of close in 2025, or we're coming to the end of an epoch. And you could ignore this and just say, well, this is just a story. But there's something true in this Tower of Time that we should be aware of, to know that we're going through this kind of threshold. And all I can say to people is that be prepared for your minds to be switched on and a light to be switched on, illuminating who and where we are with more clarity, and certainly illuminating the shadows that have been looming over us for the past 2024 years. because everything is being revealed now. We must be in the biblical age of revelation. But there you go, folks. This is the Tower of Time, and it's quite simple, and it's a little dinner party trick. You might want to build your own Tower of Time and show your friends. And but there we are. So I hope you've enjoyed that little story, and we can move on now. Maybe you can chuck a question at me, Andrena, or something. Or
well, I'm just wondering. You've got to 2025. Where do we go from here onwards?
2026.
How did I know you were going to say? So, are you building another tower block? Will you be doing anything else like that?
Well, I might be. If the inspiration or the information comes, then I will. I hope I do get more, inspiration. But as it stands, we're going through a threshold, a very exciting time of time acceleration. So hold on tight. Everything's going to be all right.
Yeah. So going back to numbers, like like I was saying to you about the 111s and 2s, and I mean we've seen them for years and years and years. So like you've chosen 777 as a number plate on your door. Would you like to share with our listeners why you picked 777?
Well, I don't think it would have been a very good idea to pick 666. Even though that is my number, because, I was born on 22nd of June, so I'm quite solar. I'm quite near sometimes I'm on the solstice, but usually I'm just, around the solstice anyway. And in this beautiful science of gematria or gematria, where, the Bible in Hebrew and in Greek was written as a numerical code, because in Hebrew they didn't have numbers, they only had letters, so numbers had to be expressed as letters. So you can read the Bible in another way once you add up the value of the letters. And so with the name Michael Tyack, in English gematria, A equals 6, B equals 12, or you can have simple gematria where A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3. So the name Michael Tyack adds up in simple gematria to 111, or in English gematria, it adds up to 666. So, I'm a 666. 666 is just a solar number, by the way. It's the magic square of the sun. It's the sum of the numbers 1 to 36. So it's nothing to do with Baphomet or devils or anything. It's just a beautiful, powerful triple number. But I'm not going to put that on my door. But the most interdimensional number is the number 7, because it doesn't form regular geometry. It's the one that kind of connects us to higher dimensions, and it's a beautiful measure of chakras. We've got 7 planets in the kind of classical world, and so on and so on. 7 is the magical number. And also, because my house is number 21, I've got 2 front doors. So I made one of my front doors the entrance to the museum, and my other front door is my private quarters, where I am at the moment. So 21 is 3 7s. There you go. It wouldn't have made sense to put 555 on the door. So 3 7s is just another expression of 21. And 37, the number 37 is another beautiful number that I could talk about for hours. It's probably my favorite number, 37. But 37 is 3 7. 3 7s, 37, 37. So 37 times 21 is 777. So kind of mathematically, to me, it's quite pleasing. But it's amazing that everyone who walks past, I just sit here, and the amount of times I hear people go 777, and every time someone says that, they're imbuing my house with more magic.
Yeah.
Or they're so, and the amount of people that have taken photographs of my house, I look out the window, there's nearly always someone just standing there with a camera. I don't know. It's just a house. It's nothing special.
Yeah, but you have got I know Jeffrey's put the picture behind, but you've got is it bark of different shapes either side, and you've got your angels in the window. Well, Glastonbury loves all that stuff, eh?
Yeah, why not? It doesn't cost anything to do that, and no one's told me off. I would imagine in Germany you wouldn't be allowed to put 777 on your front door for some reason, or maybe Holland, or maybe slightly stricter, more logical countries. No, you can't do it. It's not right. But somehow in England you're allowed to do it. I don't know if you'd be allowed to do it on Australia. Do people make up fake numbers for their houses in Australia? Maybe, I don't know.
Well, actually, there's a guy who owns a real estate company in Sunnybank, and he's one of the old school guys, who's caught up in World War II with the Japanese, and so whether you're Japanese, Chinese, whatever, as far as he was concerned, the Asian concept of the number 4, number 8, and all that stuff, and he got so brassed off with the Asians come along with their feng shui, and if the house was on the lower side of the street, they wouldn't buy it. If the front door and the back door all came into alignment, they wouldn't buy it. If you open up the front door and you went straight up the stairs, they wouldn't buy it. If the house had the number 4 in it, they wouldn't buy it. So he got really peeved with showing that particular clientele around Sunnybank, and of course the Asian community loved the name Sunnybank because it just had all the words associated with sun, the bank, and of course they all moved out of the city where they had a Chinatown, and they created their own Chinatown in Sunnybank. Now this particular gentleman was getting brassed off, and these guys, all these Asians, were just wasting his time. So at his address, because he was called Sunnybank Real Estate, he then got all this black poly thing and got all the silver number, and he changed his number. He asking me the question. He changed his number of his street, and he made it 4444 on the, because it was a corner approach, so it was black and the silver words at 4444. He didn't want them to come onto his shop, even though he had the name Sunnybank Real Estate. They would flock to his place because he was called Sunnybank Real Estate, and he just said, I've had enough. They're wasting my time. They're wasting my vendors are selling fantastic properties. There's nothing wrong with them, and they've been abused with low offers of prices. They just wanted to negotiate. He said, I don't need them as my clientele. Yeah. And so as a consequence, he used to get door knocked all the time by council officials and saying, no, your street address is this. And he said, nah, I can do whatever.
We got away with it. Good.
Yeah. So there you go. He's a prime one that I'm very familiar with. Otherwise, other people will have the number and they'll just call themselves A and B, won't they? So,
Yeah, I think it's quite good changing the number of your house.
So if you have 44, you change it, go 44A, 44B or something, just to add the extra number into your name or number. It depends on how far you're advanced in feng shui, isn't it?
Yeah. I saw a car in Avebury yesterday parked, and it had the number plate 4444. And that made me really happy.
There are a few number plates now that are 4 numbers, aren't there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Carol says, hope the postman or woman doesn't get too confused.
They get yeah. You get some quite frustrating. I mean, it's frustrating enough being a delivery driver anyway, working for DPD or whatever those delivery companies. So sometimes these poor delivery drivers, they just kind of look in despair, oh no, what's gone wrong with my day now? Yeah. But so I apologize to all the delivery drivers, but the postmen they do their normal round and they get quite used to it.
Yeah.
So sorry all you couriers, I didn't mean to upset you.
I do wonder when they're driving around now with all the different streets and numbers, and a lot of places haven't got post boxes on anymore, and it's like, well, haven't they just the postman manage? But anyway, he has a key, but it's a different ball game these days. Anyway, what else would you like to share? Because I know you're a man of many talents. So is there anything else you'd like to enlighten us with today?
Yeah, oh, there is. Yeah, I'll just talk a little bit about my great grandfather, who I inherited the sundial from him, and he was an amazing man, and I never knew till recently quite how amazing he was until my mum and dad have both passed now. So I'm the kind of, I for some reason have all these kind of artifacts from this Cornish gentleman of very high esteem. And I started investigating who he was a little bit more closely. And he's from Camborne, where my family are from, Camborne in Cornwall. And I found his tombstone in a cemetery, and it's made out of one piece of granite. It's over 20 feet high, and it's an obelisk, this granite obelisk towering into the sky. I thought he was quite an important gentleman. And he made a lot of money. He started life as a carpenter, but when he died in 1868, he was worth £37,500. But my family, I'm descended from one of his daughters, and all the wealth went through his sons. So I didn't get. I'm not an aristocrat or anything. But I started. Then I realised that he was a quite prolific historian, and he wrote a lot of books on the history of the world. So he wrote. This is all stuff that my family never told me about. So he wrote this one is The Religion of Ancient Britain, and this was published in 1855. So I got this on eBay for about 30 quid. I couldn't believe it. I'll never find another one. There probably isn't another one available. And I opened it, and he was talking about Glastonbury. And now his portrait is hanging in Glastonbury in the museum. Wow. So that's quite weird. I thought something's going on here. Why do I open it on the page where he's talking about Joseph of Arimathea? And then he writes a lot about St. Dunstan as well. So that's really interesting. And there's another book that I got from him, which is the Gentile nations or gentile nations, and it's the history and religion of the Egyptians, Assyrians, Babylonians, Medes, Persians, Greeks, and Romans. And he wrote loads of books, honestly. And so this one, I found it in America, and this one cost me about $100. But when it arrived, the courier had left it outside my house. So he hadn't even knocked. He just left it outside number 777. And then what kind of blew my mind was when I kind of opened it and I had my grandfather's portrait smiling down at me. And they actually say that to look at his face in his autobiography, they say to look at his face was like looking at sunlight shining upon Cornish granite.
Wow.
He had this kind of sparkle.
So
there he was, like looking down at me, opening this book with this kind of sparkle in his eye. And I opened it and I was like, oh no, I can't believe this. And in the corner and on the front piece, I'll show you in the corner, someone had written 777. I don't know if you can see it. Someone had written.
Oh yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
Number 777. Wow. And it came from a place in America called Bayside, and that is actually a suburb of a town in California on the coast between San Francisco and the other one up there. Anyway, it's from a town called Eureka.
Oh, Eureka, yeah.
Yeah, so I opened it, Eureka 777 twice. I mean, that's magic. And this is what the museum's about. It's about telling magical stories. It's like, how did that happen? Crazy. I mean, yeah, well, people probably know me mostly for my music, which I've had great fun. I still have great fun doing music. The latest kind of exciting thing we've been doing, as well as kind of playing rock music and all that, and doing my band Circulus, which I've been doing for over 20 years. We're not very active now, but we still exist. And the last album I made was in 2018. And this was quite an interesting album because all the lyrics on it came through my pendulum and my pendulum chart. So it's like, well, you know, why do I bother writing songs when I can get people in higher dimensions to write songs for me? So a lot of the songs, like, it's called Birth, the album, and it tells you what birth is. So the opening, no, I think, well, yeah, it's called Birth, the album, but the track Birth is just a channeled bit of prose saying that birth came from visions, and so you enter this realm by people visualizing you in this realm. I don't know. This goes on to, what are stone circles for? I think they're for birthing people into this dimension. I think Silbury Hill, it's like, this is where we're heading. These ancient structures like Avebury, I think were for bringing souls through into this dimension, possibly without the messiness of physical birth. Messy business. We're born disabled for a year, and we're born with no memory of who we are. So maybe these old stone circles and things were a way of coming into this realm without birth. I don't know, but anyway. So I've got an album called Birth, and that is available on Bandcamp. I've still got copies left of that. So if anybody wants to go on some mysterious musical trip with me, you can download Birth, or you can order a CD, and I'll post it to you at Circulus Bandcamp. But one of the latest musical adventures that I've had a lot of fun with is with a band I do called Princes in the Tower, and we're a medieval three-piece. And we've been playing together for about 15 years. Although, unfortunately, one of our members passed. The Princes in the Tower, people might know, were the rightful kings of England, and they were imprisoned in the Tower of London. And our last gig with our previous member was at the Tower of London, where we were humiliated by a television company who wanted us to play Africa by Toto, and I hadn't learned it properly. And we were dressed in rags and publicly humiliated. And then when Anthony drove away, that was the last time I ever saw him. And he had a heart attack and died. But we are playing at the Tower of London again. And I do not like the Tower of London. It's a nasty place. And this is where Abbot Richard Whiting was taken. But this is a lovely, that's not the Tower of London. That's a very pretty little ruined church called Knowlton, built inside a henge. But yeah, so Princes in the Tower, we were commissioned lately to do what is a genre of music known as bardcore, which is where it's a kind of new genre where people take popular old tunes and they play them in a medieval style. So we now have a set of bardcore tunes, which I think it's going to be up on YouTube soon. Princes in the Tower, bardcore, you might find some of that. And we do very entertaining versions of songs by the Human League and Buggles, and we do a version of Ghost Town by the Specials, anything which lends itself well to medieval horns. And yeah, that's a lot of fun. So, this is how I get my kicks these days, playing medieval music, modern music in a medieval style. But I will talk about, you can't really talk about Lego, hyperdimensional Lego, very easily. But this is the cube seal, and this is what came to me when I dug up the stone. Perhaps it didn't. Perhaps it's got nothing to do with the stone, but I do think it has something to do with the stone and the wand. So this is what happens, and I can't understand why no one has found this yet, and it was up to me to put it together. This is what happens when you write out the 9 times table, but every time you hit something with the number 9 in it, like the number, it begins with the number 9, but hey, now you can't have the number 9. So the number 9 has to appear as a 0. So it goes 0, 18, 27. It goes through the 9 times table, but from when you get to 90, you can't have 90. So it skips to 108. And it carries on like that until it gets to the very last number, the 729th number, which is the number 8883. So, for instance, where do I begin? If you look at the we're one of the most important mathematical features of this universe is the Fibonacci spiral, which gives us the golden mean and the golden ratio. So the Fibonacci spiral, which we see in sunflowers and galaxies and so forth, everybody kind of knows the Fibonacci where you add one number to the next to get to the next number. So if you start with the number 9, say that's a number 9, and you add number 9 to itself to get the second Fibonacci function of number 9. Well, if you do that 16 times, if you make 16 spirals from the number 9, you arrive at the number 8883. So this is really an expression of 16. 16 is 4, 4, 4, 4. 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 is 16. So you come through this wondrous cube out at the number 8883. So going back to 1989 and the San Francisco earthquake, I looked at how old I was at that precise moment when the earthquake hit at 5:04 p.m. I was in a village called Montclair in a picture framing shop working on my own because the other framers had gone to the ball game. So I was there on my own in this picture framing shop when suddenly all the pictures start jumping off the walls. And all the racks of picture frames, they were stored in these cylinders, were just rattling like this. It was incredibly loud. I looked up at the corner of the room, and the corner of the room was all just bending and distorting. So I started kind of running outside, and then I thought, oh no, there's going to be glass flying down in the street. So I just hid under my workbench and kind of, whimpered, please don't let me die alone. Don't let me die alone. But anyway, that was a big moment in my life. So I was born the 22nd of June, 1965, around 5 p.m. I'm not sure. My mum doesn't remember exactly when I was born, but it was at tea time. So tea time was 5 p.m. So for all intents and purposes, I was born at 5:04 p.m. So I looked, how old was I when that San Francisco earthquake hit at 5:04 p.m. on the 17th of October, 1989? And I was 8883 days old.
Really?
Exactly 8883 days old, almost to the minute. So something's going on here. These are beyond coincidences. They're so beyond coincidences that you can forget about everything. Something, our lives are kind of mapped out according to these numbers, and it's a very interesting thing to get into. If you're into sacred number, go on the internet and look at something called timeanddate.com. And it's just a website. You can put in your birthday. You can find out exactly how old you are today. But not just in years. We don't just have birthdays in years. We also have birthdays in months. Like a little while ago, last year, I was 700 when I celebrated my 700th birthday. That was 700 months old. It wasn't years old. And when you start looking at the amount of minutes in a day, it suddenly goes all sacred geometric, and you're entering this world of time is very, very beautiful. And you think, those Luddites kind of think that everything's arbitrary, that the second is an arbitrary measure of time, but it's not. It's the only way to measure time. The only way to look at time is in base 60. It only works in base 60, in the hour and the minute. And it all ties in with music, and it all ties in with the measurements of the Great Pyramid of Giza. And how I discovered this cube seal was through music. These are all musical frequencies. 144 is the note D. 432 is the note A, if you tune to 432 hertz. 153 is an E flat, and so on and so on. 243 is the note B. 81 or 162 is the note E. And so I patched together the top floor of this. And then I was reading a book by Frederick Bly Bond, who is the kind of, he was the first psychic architect, archaeologist. And he was the person who excavated Glastonbury Abbey. And he was an expert on gematria. And in his gematria book, he just had the 9x9 cube blank. And I looked at it and I thought, he just had this in his book. And I thought, I reckon I can fill that up with numbers. And I did. So I filled it up with numbers. And this is what the cube seal is. And it shows a lot. Well, for instance, it displays 1111 very deeply. If you add up all the numbers in this cube, they come to 3,239,676. 3,239,676. You think, oh, 3,239,676. That's a lot of numbers. That's quite big. But if you want to get like an average for each cell, you just have to divide that number by 729. And when you do that, you get the number 4444, which was the number that I saw on the license plate yesterday in Avebury. So basically, every cell in here, if you averaged out all the numbers, every cell would have the value 4444. This total 3,239,676 is 54 times 54 times 1111. So there's your 1111, folks. It's from the angelic cube seal, and the cube seal it all works around triple numbers. So people seeing triple numbers everywhere are looking into a mathematical higher dimension, or it's numbers from the higher dimensional creating this reality that are now starting to register in people's consciousness. So if you're seeing 1313 a lot, it's all to do with this kind of awakening that we're going through into this realization that we're in this numerical supercomputer, and we can manipulate this supercomputer with our minds because we are divine powerful consciousness, and we can do anything we want inside this matrix. And so the people seeing triple numbers are really just being opened up to this knowledge. If you go down onto
I was just going to ask you about that because we haven't seen your chart. So I was just going to ask you about that. So carry on.
Well, this is just what happens when you go down onto the 7th floor. On floor number 7, you get all the numbers beginning in 6. So, and you get these number crystals forming around the triples. I don't know if we can see this, but
yeah, I can see. Yeah,
that's the number 6111.
Yeah.
Now, I can't talk about this now, but this number 6111 is very connected with the measure of time. So through an understanding of this number 6111, there is 4 permutations. You can have 1611, but this is very much to do with cracking the code of time travel. So around this triple number, you have the permutations of the number 6102 in 6 of its permutations, forming a hexagonal crystal around this triple number. And then here we have the number 777. It can only appear in the cube seal with the number 6 because it has to be an expression of 9. So it has add up to 9. So this adds up to 27, which is 9. 9 cannot appear, but it creates everything. It creates the dimensions, and every number here adds up to 9. So around the 777, we get the 8678 crystallizing into a hexagon. And this is kind of, these are the sub atomic building blocks of reality. And I can go on and on, and it's completely sacred geometric inside it. And depending on what question you ask, you can just discover these kind of wonderful geometries. So I do want to share this cube seal, and I want other people to investigate it and to crack open, how this, clues as to how to best move forward in this numerical matrix with our massively powerful eternal consciousness. And, sort the world out.
Definitely. And it's a numbers game, all right?
Yeah.
While I was listening to you, I was reminded of this gentleman, Air New Zealand pilot.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And he was very similar in your thought pattern with the numbers and creating the patterns that were part and parcel of harmonics. For he claimed the UFOs, extraterrestrial craft, could use these grid references. It was all based on mathematics.
Yeah, it is. It is. We just haven't quite got there yet, but we're nearly there. Mm. And he had a brilliant alternative to the Big Bang theory. So the Big Bang theory which is obviously just a pile of cow poo. A big exploding turd or whatever. He had a much better explanation of the Big Bang, which of course cannot be accepted in modern academia, because everything hangs on this on the emperor's naked clothes, on this Big Bang theory. But he had I forget what he called it. He called it he had a name for it, but it was to do with the creation of the universe, which makes a lot more sense than the Big Bang theory, because obviously what happened before the Big Bang, it's just nonsense. Anyway, yeah, so it's good that what was he called, Bruce Cathy. Yeah, thank you. I must go back to read more of his stuff, and I think he also had a theory on atomic weapons, that they're harmonic weapons. I think that was him, that they only work at certain places at certain times. So the whole idea of the Cold War was just scaremongering, because these cruise missiles, they don't actually work. They only work at certain places at certain times to do with the position of the planets. So the whole nuclear scare was another big exploding cow poo. I think that was according to him. Anyway, I won't go there.
Yeah.
Right.
Nice. All these genius people around that you can investigate. Well done. Yeah.
So any tips for people that are tuned in today, that are just starting off, they're seeing like 12-12 or 11-11 or triple number? Because we know, like, for a lot of people, it's just opening up their awareness even more now. So if, like, obviously that, you've got your life path numbers, haven't you? So would that be a good starting point for people looking at numbers?
Yeah, I would just say to them, just take it seriously. Don't let people tell you that you're mad or anything because you keep seeing these numbers. Take it seriously that our minds are being prepared for a greater level of understanding, which is soon to come. I don't know. I'm pretty much in the dark at the moment, but I know that you've got this. We're moving closer to this, this new renaissance in understanding of just what a sacred, beautiful place we're in, and that the light will shine and the shadows will dissolve, and we're almost there.
Totally.
And yeah, just keep on enjoying seeing these triple numbers, and they'll soon explain to you what they're doing, but we're just not quite ready to kind of hold that vibration yet. But I think we're reaching that point where we're going to hold this higher vibration.
Certainly. Okay. Well, Is there anything you want to end up with before you finish?
Just happy equinox to everyone. And the day before yesterday, on the 19th, was the Harmony Day, which is a kind of movement which is spreading all around the world, where groups of people are meeting the day before the equinox. And this is all thanks to a real gentleman called Rory Duff, who is a dowser from Bristol, and he's basically devoted his life to dowsing, mapping earth energies. And he discovered that on these days before the equinoxes and solstices, the earth energies harmonize, where they all start, these dragon lines, they all start vibrating at the same pulse. And at sacred sites like churches or stone circles, which are nodes of these energies, these toroidal, invisible toroids are created, and they're quite often a stack of 3 toroids, like big energetic donuts that will come out of the ground, and they will appear maybe for 12 hours, but maybe for longer at these sites. And so in England, this movement's growing quite a lot, and people go to Oliver's Castle, they go to Stanton Drew, Glastonbury tour. But for this Harmony Day, I went to a beautiful little church in Wiltshire called Knowlton Church. Oh, that's actually in Dorset. That's a little mound near Maiden Castle in Dorset. But I love visiting sacred sites, and I just encourage people to go to more sacred sites, get the downloads, and go to sacred sites on Harmony Days. So the next one will be on probably June the 20th. And at this little Knowlton church, there were about 200 people there. That's inside my museum. So I just built this stained glass window over the winter, and the sun, this was the first time, it was a few days ago, that the sun actually came up above the roof of my house and shone through it.
It's a fabulous picture.
Yeah, so people can come to the museum and they can sit there and bathe in all this beautiful stained glass light, and I'll do some singing bowls or something like that. So the Museum of Wisdom, Mystery and Magic is not a fixed, it's more like an exhibition center, really. It's maybe if I retrieve the stone, that will be the main exhibit. I have an exhibit about my great-great-great-grandfather, and some of his belongings are here. But really, I think the people that come here are the exhibits.
Definitely.
Because it's the people that come here that are the wisdom, mystery and magic. And it's a, you know, it took me 4 years to build this, and now I can finally enjoy it and invite the pilgrims in, because I've done a lot of tour guiding, but, you know, I like, you know, you get a bit bored of the sound of your own voice sometimes going around these sacred sites saying the same thing. So I like to move forward in my life, and so I built this space where hopefully people can come and you know, share their magical stories and so forth.
Fantastic. Well, it's a fabulous place. So I say to anybody in Glastonbury or visiting to get in touch with you and do one of your tours and look at your amazing place, because it is stunning, absolutely stunning. And you've got like a little theatre in there as well, haven't you? Where we
do music and we do talks. Yeah. So
a very magical place. So thank you. It's been an absolute delight to have you on the show and sharing your magic and mystery. So thank you, Michael.
Well, it's been an honor, and thank you so much for asking me. Thank you so much.
Our pleasure.
Lots of love to everyone, and happy triple numbers.
Indeed.
And, just wait, we're almost there.
We certainly are. Okay, goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
And same time next week. Thank you for listening.